Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode 11 of 3 Drams. As always, I'm your host, Matt Healy from the website potstill.com, and I am delighted to be, joining you guys this evening virtually here on the 3 Drams, both Facebook and YouTube page. To everyone who is joining us live, let us know in the comments where you're joining us from, because I'm seeing people from all over the country and all over Europe right now. As always, I am your host, but a very big thanks to the guys in irishmalts.com, who are the people who put on this show every month. They're doing, as I said, I am just the host here. I have nothing to do with selecting these whiskeys or putting them into the boxes or getting them right to your front door. So as always, a really big hand to the O'Donovan brothers down in Cork, putting in a massive concerted effort to get all of these boxes across the world to your doors. As you will know, watching this, 3 Drams is a subscription service where you get 3 new fabulous Irish whiskies dropped straight to your door every month. Then we do the live stream tasting like we're doing right now at the end of each month, where you not only get to taste the whiskeys, but we also sit down with the makers of these whiskeys and talk through them. And this is your chance to be able to ask them the questions you have about their brands, their products, and also what's going on with their companies, be it a distillery, bonder, or an independent bottler. And of course, to the guys in Irish Malt, should I say, the kits for 3 Drams are going all across the world. They're going to Japan, Canada, Australia, Germany, Switzerland, to the United States, some into Argentina. There is over 1,800 kits going out every month. So it is a huge family of Irish whiskey lovers across the world. And not only that, the guys in Irish Malts, what can I say, on the absolute brink of the explosion of Irish whiskey. And just today, I know they had over 1,500 people putting in orders of purchasing Irish whiskeys and purchasing each of the whiskeys that we'll be tasting tonight. And I think that I say this every week or every month. At the end of this video, if you're a subscriber to 3 Drams, you will get an email into your inbox that gives you 10% off each of the whiskeys you're trying tonight, so you can purchase your favorite one. But if you can't decide, for the first time, the guys in Irish Malts will be offering you a combo deal, which will have an increased discount across all 3 bottles if you buy them as a bundle together, and they'll be shipped directly to your door. So there is nothing to worry about. You don't have to be carrying any boxes anywhere. It is an absolutely fantastic service. So as always, a very big hand to the guys in Irish Malts. I am seeing lots of people coming in. As always, the Glanmire crew are watching. We're seeing we've got Australia and South Africa, which is a fantastic combination. I'm unsure of how these screens are being split, but I'm loving it. We've got, of course, Garkle every month coming in from Germany. We've got Wilton in Cork. We've got Glendalough in here as well. Tullamore. Tina, an avid Irish whiskey fan in Germany, joining us again. We have Martin in the Algarve. We have an absolute brilliant representation. And of course, Matt in Dublin. So do let us know in the comment sections where you are joining us from. And as we go through the night, make sure you use that comment section, ask the questions that you want to ask, and also let us know what you're tasting with each whiskey, because everyone's taste profile is subjective, and we love hearing what you're tasting. And then at the end of the night, we will ask you to list your favorites in ascending order, because they're never the same as anyone else's, and it's always fantastic to see the tastes. So we are going to be jumping in to our first guest this evening, and I am absolutely delighted because I'm being joined by Master Distiller Noel Sweeney, a whiskey Hall of Fame distiller, formerly of one of the large distilleries up in County Louth, and now spearheading Powerscourt Distillery in the Garden of Ireland in Wicklow. Noel, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt. Great to be here. I'm doing well, thank you, and enjoying the show so far.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I know it's not your first time on one of these shows, but I'm delighted that you're able to join us again, because always a great reception for the Fercullen brand here on 3 Drams. And where are you joining us from this evening? Are you in your house in home in Louth, or?
I'm at home in Louth, yeah. I am. It's the most comfortable place at the minute, anyways. I mean, we went down at the distillery earlier today, but yeah, now at this time of the evening, it's time to get home.
Very, very fair. So I suppose through the pandemic, and I know the distillery was, working like clockwork, even though, like the rest of the country, the visitor centres were closed. Things are opening up a bit more again. Are visitors being welcomed back into the distillery at the moment, or are we slowly getting into that?
We're open again, and it's not it's hardly brisk at this stage just yet. But we've had a couple of events. We've hosted a couple of little wedding parties as well at the visitor centre, which is a lovely venue for that. We had a lovely event the other evening from our one of our Chinese club members. We had 35 of those there, and we had a great evening. And looking forward to many more events down at the distillery. It's a great location, of course, Powerscourt Estate and the gardens and all the rest of it. Beautiful hotel, golf course. Do I need to go on? I mean, we're blessed with the location, and then to have a whiskey distillery in the middle of all of that, and the warehouse right beside it. And I think we're very fortunate to have a warehouse on site, because it's not possible in the center of cities and stuff like that. Mostly because of fire risks and all the rest of it, but to have a warehouse that you can wander into and just absorb the flavor and everything that's going on in there is just an incredible experience. And on top of that, then we have food pairings as well, so it's really good. But of course, the most important thing is the whiskey.
Exactly. Said like a true distiller, I have to say. So we are sitting down this evening. We're going to have a sup of your limited release for Fercullen single grain in the Amarone casks. I know this is kind of a favorite of yours. As we mentioned before we came on air, there might only be a bit of a dribble left in your personal bottle, which is always a good sign.
I went looking at this area and said, oh my God. The mice have been in the cupboard, the two-legged ones in my house. Because,
exactly.
Yeah, I suppose it's a good sign in some respects. It's gone before you even get a chance. But anyway, yeah, it's a popular dram. It has been anyway in my house.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna invite everyone before we get into it that we're gonna have dram number 1 here. Yeah. So I'm gonna fill up my glass, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the whiskey that we're gonna have in the glass now?
Well, you mentioned earlier about one of my pets is grain whiskey from the flavor and distinctiveness of grain whiskey. I think that we were quite fortunate in the previous existence in Cooley to make some excellent grain spirit, and it matures very well in bourbon. It gives a great leveling of the whiskey and allows the spirit to come through as well, because with the production of grain, which is made predominantly from corn or maize, you get that kind of buttery popcorn texture and flavor in the grain. So with this particular bottling, we went to look for something special, and we went to look and see what we could marry up with this, and we've tried an Amarone cask. Now, people that aren't familiar with Amarone, it's a kind of like a deep red wine coming from the north of Italy up there. I think it's near Venice, in a place called Verona, that end of northern Italy. And the way that they make Amarone, it's from a partially dried grape. So it's very rich and full of flavor in the wine itself. And you can get typical flavors in Amarone, kind of cherries and plums and that kind of thing. So the grain whiskey in its own right is, I would say, has to be regarded as kind of a lighter spirit than a malt, as far as it doesn't have an awful lot of its own flavor. It's not a big, robust, heavy lump of a whiskey, so it tends to be light and easy to drink. So when we looked at what we might do with this, we would put it into different sherry casks. Would be very heavy for this, but Amarone, even though it's a rich red wine, it's still quite a delicate flavor, and those plums and even cinnamon and cherry flavors, we're trying to get some of that in here. And sometimes it comes across to me as sometimes you get that licorice almost in the nose and on the taste. So I think that's mostly what we're looking at in the grain. It's bottled at 46%. So I mean, this isn't chill filtered or anything like that, and it's a really nice rounded whiskey.
I'll say to anyone that still has their glass untouched like myself, I'll say sláinte to you, and have a little sip. So.
Mm. It's got a kind of creaminess to it. I always think about the grain. Uh, very smooth, very easy to drink. You get that kind of little bit of uh, mouth watering, and then there's a kind of a dryness to the end of the finish.
Absolutely. I'm really enjoying about the grain is you have that backbone of the kind of very familiar vanilla charred oak sweetness, but there's a lovely forward note, more of a spice, a little bit like maybe the kind of towards the cinnamon end that you're mentioning a moment ago, mixed with a little bit of a dark fruits as well, which is it was actually delightful to see the two of the flavors play together on the nose, and very robust on the palate. I must say it's very interesting. And is this from memory a combination of a number of different ages? So I think 2010 through 2012.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to have a look and see how the different aged whiskies would come out of this, and we did put all three into Amarone at the time. So when we came to look at the bottling on a limited edition, we were saying, okay, well, these have all got little bits of different things to add together, and they just come out in uh, a spread across that age category really works, and this is what we've ended up with.
And in terms of when you were, I suppose, working in the distillery, you mentioned the warehouse. It's literally kind of out the still house door, and you're at the warehouse. It's literally a stone's throw away. From your point of view as a distiller, how much attention do you have to give casks like Amarone when you're working with new products such as a limited edition like this?
I think that one of the most important parts of any whiskey maturation or finish is the barrel, is the wood. It has a huge impact on the product, on the whiskey, and as it gets older, that impact is only increasing with time. So the importance of getting and selecting the right cask is crucial. Now, there's always the little basic 1, 2, 3 type of thing. You say, well, number one, you have to make sure that there is absolutely no off notes in the cask when you get it initially. So you check the barrel, make sure there's a nice sweet wine flavor, because again, if there's an issue with this, it can stand out really, really strongly. Sulfur is another thing that you have to avoid when you're using wine casks in particular, and that's sulfur that gives you that kind of a red rubbery kind of tinge to the whiskey, or the flavor of the whiskey that you would find like laboratory tubing, and that sometimes gives you a terrible flavor.
I hope you're not chewing on too much laboratory tubing now these days. No.
No, but that's the kind of thing you have to look out for when you're looking at filling casks. And then over the period that you're finishing, or that time frame, you need to check it out every now and again. Because in some cases, if you leave it in the barrel too long, the Amarone or the wine or the sherry will overcome the whiskey, and you're not getting a balance between the spirit that you started out with and what you're trying to add in as another layer of complexity. So you have to have that balance between the two, and that's what makes a good finish and a good blend in a lot of ways of flavors.
One thing I do enjoy about this show is that we're speaking to each other direct on camera, but of course our next guests are in the green room, and I am the only one that can see them right now. And I know James, I love that they also taste along with us. And James has just put a lovely message up saying he's very much enjoying this lovely raspberry and linseed sweetness. So it's good to see Irish whiskey producers enjoying the wares of other distilleries as we go through the tasting. We have a question in here from Dermot Corey. He's wondering, how long does the whiskey finish in these Amarone casks?
That's a very interesting point. As I said to you a minute ago, you have to be careful and watch them. Usually a finish is about 6 months, but it can be up to 2 or 3 years. This particular one is less than 3 years.
Okay. I mean, that's a very decent finish for any whiskey in modern days. And I suppose when you're looking at finishing whiskey, or perhaps even building out the Fercullen portfolio, is it a case at the moment of experimentation and seeing what flavors work with the profiles, or do you have a set kind of markers that you want to fall within?
Generally speaking, if you have the stock availability, you will try different finishes or different casks to see what works best. And this is something we've done in relation to both grain, but also in malt with our 5 Elements series, where we've had to try various finishes and then either bring them out as individual if they're up to that kind of standard, bring them out as a range, bring them out as combinations of flavors as well. So 5 Elements would be an example of that. But in this instance, this is just single finish with the single grain, and it just works so very, very nicely.
So there's a lot of people in the comments who are enjoying this with a drop of water, opening up a lot of the licorice flavors that you mentioned as well, which I'm enjoying. And there you go. With is but it's something that a lot of people do enjoy as they're tasting along with 3 Drams, and very much gives a very different imbibing experience, opening up such different flavors. I suppose from the actual distillery itself, of the new stock that you're laying down, is there a core kind of wood plan that you're working with in terms of types of casks? Is Amarone featured in it, or are we looking more kind of the traditional fortified wines and bourbon?
Predominantly, when you're producing a fair lot of whiskey, you would normally start to put it down in bourbon, because that's the most cost-effective starting wood that you can get. I mean, sherry casks, Amarone casks, these are 5 times the price and even 10 times the price of a bourbon cask, depending on what ones you buy. So you need to be very specific on what your targets are and plans are in the maturation warehouse. If you have a small production unit, then you're looking at you need to use higher end casks and try and get as much as you can out of that. So the initial maturation for us would be planned in bourbon, and then where our intention is that most of our whiskies wouldn't be readily or in a large volume available until they're about at least hopefully 6-8 years of age. So after about 6 or 7 years, you kind of get the best use out of the bourbon cask in malt production, and similarly with pot still. After that, then you can play with your finishes. Now, that's not to say that 4-year-old whiskies are perfectly good and mature, but you're looking at intensity and complexities, and you're basically, the older the whiskey is, the more book you get for your, they're getting a bit more expensive, but you're getting more flavor and more quality in there.
Absolutely. And I suppose I'm pulling up some comments here that people are comparing this to the 10-year-old the 10-year-old grain that is from the distillery also, and very much enjoying their comparisons. And then I suppose in the distillery, I suppose what's the focus in terms of whiskey production at the moment? Is there anything that you can share with us? I don't want to be giving away too much proprietary knowledge, but I would love to share more.
Not at all. I like to think we're free enough with the information we give. We obviously, our main focus is on malt whiskey production. We're doing a lot of triple distilled malt, but along with that, we've done some double distilled malt. We've done a little bit of peated malt. We've done some pot still, ordinary standard kind of 30% pot still, and then we've done one with rye at the beginning of this 2020. Which is very interesting as well. And so that gives us opportunities down the road, and we're always looking at how we might expand the portfolio, because I mean, the part of the thing of the marketing, people are always looking for something new to do and something new to keep people interested in the brand and in what we do. And these will eventually come out in time, obviously, and we're looking forward to that. So the new things, I suppose, a little bit of peated malt, so I'm sure I couldn't resist, could I? So we'll see if that comes, and the pot still is nice and spicy as well, and looking forward to seeing those come out.
And when you're, processing these different styles, be it malt or peated malt or pot still, is there much in terms of the actual distillation practices that you change yourself or would need to change when processing the different styles?
Absolutely. I mean, every one of them you have a different approach. As I said, we do double distilled malt, so you straight away you've got that middle distillation out of there. So your ABV at the end of distilling twice is much lower than it would be distilling a third time. Your cuts are different so far as you start off at a lower strength, and you're going down to a strength then that's well relatively the same. You can't go too low, but if you understand. Peat is a different animal altogether. You want to conserve the phenols in the peat, which give it the flavor of peat, and so your cut has to be slightly lower than it would be with a standard malt. And then if you're looking at pot still, well, you can have all kinds of fun with that. But again, you have to get the right balance, and that's what it's all about. So you're dealing with your cuts, you're dealing with triple and double distilling, and you're dealing with kind of whether you want those heavier flavors coming from the lower end of the distillation unit or more fruity estery ones at the top. You're also looking at the wort that you're producing. If you want a really sweet whiskey, you're looking at producing something of a clear wort or clearer than you might with other whiskies. So, this fermentation times, that kind of thing as well, all play an important role in the final product.
So you're saying there's a lot of permutations, not only with multiple styles of whiskey, but just even producing one style of whiskey.
That's the beauty of this whole industry, that you can have so much variation in relatively a small number of plants or distilleries, and every whiskey is different. There's none of them going to be exactly the same, and that appeals to people as well. So it's we draw comparisons and have done for years with wine, and they talk about the different grape varieties. We talk about the different cereals that we use. They talk about the terroir, and we've started to talk about that now in this country a little bit as well. How relevant it is anyone's, has yet to be probably thoroughly proven, but everything has its effect. I used to say to people that would visit me in Cooley, I says, if I tore this distillery down and built it again across the road, we wouldn't make the same whiskey that was did, even with the same water and same. It just doesn't work that way, because there's always something in there. There's so much that we do in the process that to keep it as consistent as possible is the aim, but there's always something that with these little waves of variation all the time, and it's controlling those that makes a good whiskey.
Exactly. And then I suppose as we're wrapping up a little bit with Fercullen, but is there, I suppose, an interest in the, I suppose, as you're seeing in the younger distilling teams coming through and people, are you seeing an interest coming through in the production side with the new courses opening up in Ireland? And I know your distilling team is very, very qualified, but also, has a youthful side as well to.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the younger people coming into distilling and into the production and side of the business, and it's great to see the interest and how they pick up the business, and there's a great future in Irish whiskey because there's an interest. There's also a great interest in younger people in drinking whiskey as well, which is encouraging. That it's not no longer regarded as go out and get a bottle of whiskey and sit somewhere in the corner and get hammered drinking loads of whiskey. Now people are doing like we are here tonight, having a little sip, having a conversation, having some fun and enjoying it and remembering an occasion that might happen. Uh, Unfortunately, there's a lot of competition in the industry. Uh, I've lost two of my apprentice distillers, if you want to put it that way, in recent times. So there's always opportunities going in the industry, and it's great that they get around and move around to different distilleries. And it's a learning curve for everyone. And the biggest learning curve of all is time, and experience, and I think it's great that they can get around to different distilleries and see what other people are doing and what other ideas are coming through. And even within the industry as it is now, there's been an awful lot of change, an awful lot of new blood come into the industry, And that's what's going to drive the innovation and changes. And I think it's a fascinating period of time for Irish whiskey, and long may we all have success at it.
Exactly. Well, I'm delighted to be sitting here with you and enjoying a lovely Tashcon of the Fercullen single grain in Amarone. I will tell everyone that if you're loving this, because I can see it in the comments that you are, wait till the end of the show. The O'Donovan brothers will be dropping a discount code right into your inbox. You don't even have to move. You can watch the show and the discount comes to you. It's fantastic. You can find this whiskey, of course, on irishmalts.com, the website. There are lots of other retailers in Ireland that have it. But of course, if you go to the distillery itself, Noel, I'm sure you'll be able to pick up a bottle there as well. Is that not right?
Most of the time you will, but you have to watch them shelves. They just, this stuff is just walking off the shelf. And it is a limited edition, don't forget. So I think it's doing very, very well. We're very pleased with the way it's turned out, and I hope everybody else is enjoying it this evening.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I invite you to watch from the green room, and I am just so much for your insight and for tasting this whiskey with us this evening. Thank you so much, Noel.
Delighted to be here, Matt, and great show, and enjoy it. Take care.
Thank you so much. Well, I am delighted to be welcoming my second guest of the evening. If one guest wasn't enough for you, of course, we have our second guest of the evening, Mr. Conor Hyde, founder of Hyde Irish Whiskey, and we are tasting Hyde number 11 Peated Single Malt. Sir, Mr. Hyde, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Matt. Delighted to be here.
Where in the world are you joining us from this evening, sir?
I'm actually joining you from home. Unfortunately, in the last year and a half, more and more like everybody else, we've had to set up camp at home for administration and daily admin and management, and so back at base. So.
Very well. At least we have the fantastic Hyde setup behind your head, which is lovely. Yeah. I suppose I'm going to invite people just to pour dram number 2 here, Iragol. But why don't you tell us, I suppose, a little bit about this whiskey? Because I know we're seeing a lot of fantastic Hyde whiskeys coming out over the last few years, but this is, I think, going to be a very popular one this evening. Having had a little
this is a new departure for us, I suppose, Matt. It's Hyde number 11, so we actually have about 13 different expressions at this stage, including some single casks and some cask strength. But I suppose it's been on our radar to do a peated triple distilled single malt for quite a few years. I mean, if you look internationally, I suppose the majority of Scotch whiskey is still peated around the world, and they're still the big competitor internationally. So more and more, as we were, I suppose, distributing our various whiskey expressions around the world, we kept on being asked, especially in France and Germany and Scandinavia and Japan. They love peated, and they love those phenols coming through in the whiskey. But we kept on being asked for a lighter peat, so something that wasn't overpowering. I suppose when you look at a lot of the Islay whiskies, they're 300 parts per million phenols, so they're quite robust, overpowering peated whiskies and malts. So what we wanted to do with this particular expression is, I suppose, enter the peated area with a triple distilled. It's nearly 5 years old, so it was actually distilled in January 2017. I kept the sample, so originally it looked like this when it came off the still, and then we put it in casks that we sourced from America. So we put it in Buffalo Trace AB casks, really good quality, very good juicy Buffalo Trace casks that we brought in from the States, made with white American oak. So they're good quality casks, and I suppose we picked the bourbon cask because it wasn't going to overpower the gentle peatedness of the triple distilled malt made from Irish grain. So I suppose if you want to nose it a little bit, hopefully straight away you get the smokiness. But as if you're used to, obviously you are drinking some Scottish peated whiskies, you notice it's not overpowering. It's gentle, and you certainly get a little bit of sweetness and maybe pear and apple If you give it a little taste, I think, again, the peatedness isn't killing the senses on the palate, and there's certainly a sweetness and a honey and a pear, and you can get the maltiness as well. That biscuit, I suppose I like to describe it like a digestive biscuit of the malted barley coming through. But again, the smokiness in this is only about 14 to 16 parts per million. So it's quite gentle. It's quite low in the peatedness and the smokiness of the grain when it was peated. So I think the finish is creamy, long, gentle, and I think it certainly has that full peated experience, but without overpowering your senses. So I suppose for us, we're not like the other two guests here tonight. We're bonders, so we're not distillers, and our focus is very much always on the casks and the wood management and the aging and the maturation, which is why our tagline is "It's all about the wood," because that's our focus. As Noel was saying there earlier, the wood has such a huge impact on the final whiskey. When you take that, it looks like that coming off the still. It looks like vodka. It looks colorless, and it sometimes doesn't taste that good. But it's only when it's interacting with this stuff, the wood. You can see that's one of our staves there.
I've one or two myself here.
Yeah. So, and that's actually one of the bourbon staves. So I suppose it's a nice addition to our range. We have lots of different expressions prior to this. We've done malted whiskies, triple distilled in different cask finishes, and we've done single grains and single casks. But I'm quite proud of this, and I'm very happy with what the cask has done to it over the 4 years. So we age our casks in Little Island. People might know much about Hyde because I suppose we haven't done many of these tastings, Matt, as you probably know. We keep a low enough profile. We do what we do in our bonded warehouse, and up to now we haven't really done much, I suppose, on the marketing or outward tasting front. But I suppose in a nutshell, quick history about our family is our family were publicans in West Cork, just outside Bandon, a place called Tinker's Cross. And the pub was famous for aging whiskey out the back of the pub. So they would have bought casks from places like Allman's in Bandon, and they would have aged them literally in a little hut out the back of the house. But that had been going on since 1640 for 10 generations. So our family was well known, and still is well known, as a very good seller of quality whiskey and stout. The Hyde's pub was famous for the quality of its stout. So that's why in 2014 we decided to, I suppose, go into bonding and to relaunch the family name as bonders and agers of quality whiskey, which we source from our distillery partners who we work very closely with, mainly in Munster. So I suppose since we've launched, we've started with one. We started with a 10-year-old, which was our flagship whiskey, a single malt finished in a sherry cask. But we quickly ran out of 10-year-old. Believe it or not, there's a shortage of it out there. So, and that's how we ended up then developing other expressions over the years. And we moved on to single grains, single malts, with blends. And as you know, we've won some very prestigious awards as a result of the work we've been doing with the wood over the years. We've won the San Francisco Double Gold. We won the International Whiskies Award in London, overall category winner, and just got a Great Taste Award last week, which we're very happy with.
Congratulations.
In London. So we must be doing something right with our wood management and our maturation. So our focus is on the wood, obviously, because we're not distillers. We take a really good liquid, and in a lot of cases we have the specification for the mash tun agreed with our distillery partners, so that they make it according to our requirements, and then we take the new make and we put it in our casks. So I before COVID, I suppose I would have traveled the world quite a bit, sourcing different casks directly from cooperages and sometimes directly from wineries and distilleries. So luckily we had a lot of that in place before COVID hit. So we still had our supply lines for casks. So I suppose that's a little bit about us. The years, some people ask us, what do the years mean on, when you look at some of the years on the bottles, we always have a commemorative year on the bottle. And generally they're associated with something significant to do with the foundation of the Irish state or with Douglas Hyde. So Douglas Hyde is in our family tree. He was the first president of Ireland. So we like to commemorate different years in his life. So the 1949, which is on this expression, the triple distilled peated single malt, is the year he died, 1949, Douglas Hyde. So that's, I suppose, a question we often get asked, which is, what's the significance of those limited?
I hope he wasn't cremated and have a funny commemoration to the peat. No, but I'm only joking.
Well, so I suppose that's a bit more about us, because a lot of people don't know much about the Hyde family and the bonding. But as I said, 10 generations. I'm the first not to be born in that pub in Bandon outside West Cork. But we have put a lovely plaque up in it so people can see where it's based. But my dad was actually born in the pub, and everyone before him, back to 1640. So I was actually born in a hospital, first generation. So there's a long tradition of, I suppose, aging whiskey. So I'm very proud. My own dad only passed away in January, but I know he was extremely proud of the fact that the Hyde name could now be found on whiskey bottles again and be found everywhere from Melbourne to Moscow to, you name it. We're in nearly 50 markets worldwide at this stage, and every month we're nearly adding different markets, weird and wonderful ones like Morocco and Nigeria, and so we're proud of what we do. And as I said, our focus is just on the wood, the cask management, the aging, and West Cork is a great place to age wood because of the temperature down here. It's never too hot, never too cold.
A perfect climate.
Well, some of the time.
Exactly. Maybe perfect climate for maturation.
Yeah.
For me, this is actually incredibly interesting. As I said, I had a quick peek of it or a sniff before we started. And there's a resurgence and a rise of popularity of peated whiskies in Ireland at the moment. And one of the things I suppose people are using peat for is to be, differentiated, bring more, I suppose, different flavors than perhaps Irish whiskey consumers are used to into the whiskeys. But this is, I have to say, quite differentiated from all the rest of them. Which is, I've had quite a number of peated Irish whiskies, and this definitely stands out from the crowd. On the nose, particularly, there's a lovely kind of herbal vegetable note in there as well. Peat can often fall into the herbal category, the iodine category, the kind of smoky bacon category for me. And I'm actually, they say falling into this glass. It's fantastic. The nose,
it's only 43% as well, Matt, which allows it, I think, maybe to be a bit more opened up than some of the higher ABV malts that are out there.
Oh, it's a fantastically balanced. And there's a lot of comments coming through here about the balance of the peat and the sweet, as they say, and a lot of people complimenting your backstory as well. And again, James from Sliabh Liag is enjoying your wares, as is Noel as well. So I'm glad to see that our two other guests are also imbibing along with us and enjoying each other's distillates as we go. I suppose we can find this whiskey on Irish Malt. Of course, there will be a discount code dropped straight into your inbox. As you said, it's 43%. It's wholly matured in bourbon. That's correct?
Bourbon, yeah. So Buffalo Trace bourbon. As I said, we didn't want to. We may do in the future look at finishing, because I suppose our range is quite famous for the different finishes that we do currently, and we may look at doing some single cask finishing, of this, just to see how that turns out. And we are playing around with some other casks at the moment, but for this, I suppose the mainstream version of this particular peated single malt, we wanted to keep it clean, and we wanted the palate to come through cleanly from the simplicity of the bourbon cask.
Absolutely. I mean, in as you'll well know, in Irish whiskey right now, there's a penchant for lots of different types of cask finishing, but this in my books, stellar bourbon maturation. And this is and again, of the age you told us, I think tastes well above its years. I and many people in the comments are very, very impressed with this whiskey. So thank you for coming on and telling us all about it.
Delighted. And it's non-chill filtered, obviously. You know, that's standard across the range. We don't chill filter, and we don't, you know, as you can see, that it's as the color as the wood gave it. You know, so it's pure, simple, natural, clean Irish whiskey with a gentle peatedness of just 14 parts per million.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. As Mike says in the comments, it's like Redbreast crossed with Ardbeg. A huge compliment to his
That's
book.
a great compliment. Very, very, very proud of that. So, as I said, we you know, our focus is on the wood, and we do have some interesting projects coming on the pipeline again next year. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk in the future again about some of the interesting finishes, and we're doing. I suppose one of the things we have coming down the line finally is a pot still. It's been a long time coming, so that'll be coming in January. And we have some very unusual single cask finishes. We just brought in a very interesting red wine cask from Greece. So I don't know, has anyone ever done an Irish whiskey in a red Greek cask before? But that should be very interesting. And we're doing a cider cask for France from Normandy for the French market. So the French love when you finish Irish whiskey in a local cask.
French cask.
So we did. That's why we did the Burgundy cask originally, the Pinot Noir, and it was very successful. And last year we did the Banol's cask, which is like a sweet red wine cask from the south of France. And the French love that, of course, when you support France with the cross-pollination of Irish whiskey with their casks, you know. So.
Absolutely. And if people wanted to go online and find out more about you, kind of what website should they be heading towards?
Well, I suppose, you know, everything you need to know is on our own website, Hyde Irish Whiskey .ie, or hydewhiskey.ie, sorry, hydewhiskey.ie.
That's all right.
So, so we, as I said, are extending the range all the time and playing around with different casks. It's as I often say, it's a tough job, but I do enjoy doing it and tasting the casks on a weekly basis. Because as Noel said earlier, you know, you have to be careful with casks because you can get bad casks. So you can get a cask that just has bad wood, or it might have some sulfur notes in it. You know, so you have to be careful with the wood that you choose, and you have to sometimes weed out bad casks. So, you know, just sometimes like growing something, you get a bad crop, you get a bad cask, and you know, and that's why we taste them and rotate them and do it on a regular basis to try and pick a cask that's not doing what it should be doing, and take that away from the rest of the group. So we're I suppose you know, growing as a company with our range, and I suppose the fact that we're not distillers allows us to do that, because it's a tough job distilling, as I'm sure you know, Noel and James will testify to. You know, there's a lot of, as Noel was saying, there are a lot of moving parts in a distillery, and it's tough to do all that and then to focus on the wood, which has probably 80% of the effect on the final product. So us not distilling actually gives us more leeway to focus just on aging and rotation and cask curation. You know, we're like librarians. That's the way we look at it. You know, so.
You have a decimal system in the cask warehouses, I'm sure, to find your way.
Pretty hectic. There's a lot of different and there's a lot of innovation going on. More and more recently, we're being asked for more single casks. We find that's a big trend across all the markets we're operating in. So we're getting retailers who just want 390 bottles of their own cask, and we've a wide menu of casks we can offer them, but they want that to happen for certain times of the year, and so there's a lot of that single cask juggling going on in the warehouse, as well as trying to keep the mainstay of products, like this new peated malt, because this is a mainstream addition to our range. It's not just a single cask. And
fantastic. So here to stay.
Here to stay, and like a lot of the industry at the moment, we're facing a lot of issues with getting in just supplies of glass, corks, labels, and that's why, unfortunately, this particular release isn't going to be in the store until tomorrow, because it's actually been bottled right now on the line, because there was just a delay getting stuff in, like bottles and labels. But the good news is it will be available tomorrow in
that's it. You put your orders in tonight. You won't even notice that it was being bottled this evening. So at least people will know it's fresh.
Straight off the line.
Exactly. Well, Conor, thank you so much for your time here this evening. Oh, look at that. Bang on time. Your phone knew exactly when it was time. Well, thank you so much for your time and for introducing us to an absolutely stellar whiskey. I very much appreciate it.
It's delighted to be here. Thanks a million, Matt. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Wow. Guys, I am delighted, because if you were enjoying yourself there with Conor Hyde, and I have to say I certainly was, I'm going to introduce you now to James Doherty, the owner and founder of Sliabh Liag Distillery, and he's going to show us and introduce us to the legendary dark Silkie Irish whiskey. So welcome to the show, James. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fat and flourishing, Matt. How are you?
I'm good. We can finally take you out of the wings. And I could see, unfortunately, the people in the comments section couldn't see your fantastic reviews of the other whiskeys, and your egging of me to get proprietary knowledge out of Noel. But it's a delight to have you. Where are you joining us from this evening, sir?
So I'm at home now. So just up in southwest Donegal. So it's a fierce night. So I had to put some earphones in because it's hailing at the moment. So it sounded like there were some drums going on my Velux windows.
Well, we and everyone at home very much appreciates that. I'm flabbergasted that you're able to get broadband up there, so I'm delighted you're able to join us. But I suppose for those at home that don't know you and I suppose Sliabh Liag and the legendary Silkie, I am going to take my bottle here. I'm going to pour it in the glass, but why don't you take us through a little bit of background?
Sure thing. Thanks, Matt. Well, Moira and I came back in 2015 to reclaim the distilling heritage of Donegal, I guess, and ultimately for us that was this county having one of the strongest illicit distilling heritages, and the fact that there was no distillery here at all seemed to us kind of completely alien. And so making whiskies and gins. So actually, we're distilling today on the gin front that really could only come from Donegal. So everything we kind of do, and you probably should have a sweepstake on how many times I get the word Donegal into the conversation today. But celebrates Donegal, has to drink soft. So I have a real thing for soft drinking hard spirits. Beautiful, but not necessarily pretty to look at, and kind of challenges the existing codes. And that means we make savoury gins and smoky Irish whiskies.
Okay, I'm with you. And anyone who's stuck their nose into this glass, we'll see where we're going with this. And I know this is one of your most recent releases, because I had through the lockdowns of the pandemic, I was rating my favorite whiskeys of per month, and this one blew me out of the water when it was released. So I was delighted that this is in the lineup tonight, because I'm delighted that not only am I pontificating about it on potstilled.com, that I now get to do it literally publicly, talk about it here. And also, by the way, I want to note one thing. I'm not sure if these are for public sale, but if they are, you need to go on to James's website. You have Silkie branded t-shirts that are the best branded t-shirts that I am awash with branded T-shirts that range from good to mediocre and then back to crap. And yours is the only one, maybe bar one, in the excellent pile that I've received so far. So if you are watching and you want to deck yourself out in Silkie branding, buy the most comfortable and best fitting branded T-shirts you can, assuming they're for sale.
No, they most definitely are, but they are. You only have to look at me to know that we're built for comfort, not for speed. So, Moira is obsessed with kind of quality, and she's fairly uncompromising about it. So that kind of drives a lot of what we do. And actually, ultimately, we make pretty much everything we make is something we make because that's what we want to drink. And the Silkie, I suppose, is the kind of piece that paves the way for the whiskies that we'll make in our own distillery, which is super exciting because we were doing the electrical testing today. We will do hydro testing on the week of the 11th, and we'll be distilling on the week of the 18th. So, but legendary Silkie has a 4% of the blend is peated, and we're trying to get to sort of start people on that journey into peated whiskey. Dark Silkie is very much the kind of where my heart is at, and it was we took a kind of moment. We always try and take a moment and capture it, and so this is the moment of when I was a sort of 10-year-old boy sneaking down to my grand's kitchen in the morning in Ireland, and granddad's pipe was there by the range, and he'd suck on it, and there was this sweet tobacco, ashy kind of smoky aroma, and for me there was something incredibly safe and cozy and and slightly illicit about it. And so you've got 15% of this blend is a triple distilled peated. Damn you, man!
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. I'm just enjoying that I'm driving people to buy merchandise because it's a damn good T-shirt. Please continue because we're drinking whiskey.
Not at all. Thank you. Listen, every sale helps these days. When you're small like us. So this kind of celebrates that, and it has 15% of it is a triple distilled peated malt matured in sherry casks. All the whiskies are from Great Northern. They're actually sort of 3 to 4 years old, so they're quite young. It has a double distilled malt in there as well, and the backbone of it, I guess, is a big round belly of a virgin grain. So grain, the Great Northern grain, I think, is largely maize, so you get this kind of buttery popcorn sweetness to it. And so you get this kind of salted caramel sweetness, apple, kind of almost a baked apple note on it, sort of pipe tobacco, slightly ashy. So, and we try and talk about smoke. I think the Scots unfortunately own peat, so I'm not in favour of adding peated to the labels. And because everything we do is peated, we don't need to. So, you're not going to come to us unless you want a peated whiskey. So it's all about smoke and using smoke as a flavour. So.
Of course. Well, I'm going to say sláinte and have a little sip. So,
and I think it's Matt, we had a lovely year last year because, and not many people will say that because I think COVID, everybody stopped their launches, and unfortunately we bottled it and had nothing. What do you do with it? So we stuck it online, and the online community got right behind Dark Silkie. And we basically got a free run at 3 or 4 months before anyone else kind of launched anything. So it was kind of newsworthy and interesting, and I think it was different enough and approachable enough that it kind of gave people somewhere interesting to kind of to play with over that kind of early part of the summer.
Absolutely. Sorry, the dog is flying around, throwing teddies around beside me. So if you hear the scratching feet, she's no whiskey on her yet, but I'm sure she'll try and knock it over at some point.
We've got a Jack Russell crossed with a Shih Tzu running around here, so when she starts yapping, you'll know all about it. I can assure you.
Oh, very, very good. we won't ask questions then. But no. I mean, a fantastic point you made. That it very much was in a kind of a chasm of its own launch. Like you said, you had a buffer kind of either side of you, and it's I see JB saying, "I don't lie. This is something else." I think that this has the DNA of the Silkie, but is differentiated. It's not. It doesn't feel like just a step up. It feels like almost a diagonal move in some ways. That it's a.
Yeah.
I feel it's a whiskey unto itself. I don't just feel like, okay, I bought the second iteration of the Silkie. This is such a, to me, an interesting, complex combination of flavors as well.
I think that's fair, actually. I mean, we were looking for a kind of growing up, but not necessarily growing up in a straight line, because I think when you start playing with peat's really interesting in a blend anyway. So small amounts of peat are like seasoning on a decent meal, that they just set the flavors off. So it's a really good thing to use, and I think that's why you can see more people using it now in their blends. But dark Silkie for us was kind of trying to tell a more singular story about this kind of, you know, there's this sweet, soft Irishness with a smoke blanket laid over it, which isn't necessarily too challenging. It isn't in a way that says, I can't get my head around that, or I don't like, you know, I don't do peated whiskies. It was deliberately blended. I mean, I might have taken the smokiness a slight bit further, but Moira and I were blending together in the lab with Brian and Sarah up in Great Northern, and you know, I was going a bit more, and then eventually Moira just said no, and I said, okay, we're going to come back 1% from there, and that's kind of where we've gone at it. Now, I've since persuaded her to go further, so we have actually got an even smokier version coming out, which is coming out sort of probably in the middle of November, because we're having a nightmare trying to get the capsules for it. But the blend is all done, and it will take the smokiness on in a slightly different way. So probably diagonally, to use your phrase, again, because I'm not particular. I don't think I'm particularly good with PX, but we've gone into PX and played with that, and Imperial Stout as well. So we're taking it again on another level, and hopefully giving you sort of that sort of dry, smoky blanket, but then the core of what I think the Silkie blend, which is about balance and sweetness and spice, and taking that on, and then adding another level of sort of complexity to it. So you know, for me, this will always be sourced. So we've been very clear that you know, the Silkie blend, we will only ever make one component of the blend, so we can't make all of it. So there's no way that this can be all made in our distillery, because we're only going to make peated, single malt and peated pot still. So gosh, there's some nice comments. Thank you guys. So a little bit overwhelming, but and I think it's lovely to sort of see that reaction to it, but it's also lovely to see that kind of a style of Irish whiskey that was not even largely forgotten, was completely forgotten apart from Connemara, you know, and Connemara as a single malt kind of does something different, I think. To see kind of people embracing smoky Irish whiskies in a way that that kind of comes across in blends and is approachable, it is really, really, really special. And you know, we're kind of lucky that message is kind of landing, and seems to be landing pretty well at the moment.
Absolutely. I'm going to interject for one moment, because Mike D, who's been fantastically vocal in the comments this evening, says, okay, definitely buying this now. What have I told you, Mike? You wait 8 more minutes and you'll have a discount code, and or else the Donovan brothers already sent the discount code, in which case buy it now. But because it's how you're going to be able to get 2 bottles instead of 1. But
definitely.
But James, a lot of people in the comments are asking, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but a lot of people are asking about your sellout hits of your limited edition cast strength versions of these. Will we be seeing limited returns of those expressions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, which I maybe should have done, is that, you know, Moira's from Zimbabwe. She and I spent a long time in Africa. I drink everything cold. So if I'm writing a set of tasting notes, a little bit of water, nothing else, but, you know, just because that's the way to really get all the flavors out of it. But for pleasure, I drink everything cold. So all of the blends are done in a way that makes them work with ice. And the thing that always struck me about the cask strength limited editions was actually how well they performed with ice. And it kind of changes, like dark Silkie at cask strength with ice changes the nature of the drink kind of amazingly. So So we will continue to do cask strengths. They're kind of complicated for us, and we're going well in America at the moment, and the place is absolutely rammed with cardboard and bottles, because as Conor was saying earlier, you have to buy so much of everything at the moment just to try and get it in. That anything that's kind of complicated or too small runs, and 200 bottles is a small run, is a challenge for us. But we definitely will do it when the new one comes out in November. That will have we'll do a cask strength version of it as we release it, and we'll continue to sort of do a couple of releases a year of cask strength versions of the Silkies, because they seem to go well, and we should give people what they want, really. So.
Exactly, and I kind of test your penchant for ice and whiskey from Zimbabwe. I spent a number of years in the US where I was equally corrupted by ice and whiskey, and I can also attest that this does go fantastic with ice, because when I'm not sitting down to nose whiskey, a lot of the time that's how I like to drink my whiskeys. Yes. Much to the shock of the general whiskey drinking public.
We should look at the private chat and make sure I haven't fallen out with Noel. But I mean, for me, if you ask me how I drink whiskey, it's a tall glass, lots of ice, or a tour glass, lots of ice. So it's always that way. But but I think it's trying to, everyone's trying to make versatile whiskeys. Hopefully, we've got the balance right. I think the way the regular Silkie is now, it doesn't have any spikes in it, so we've tweaked that recipe this year. But dark Silkie's kind of been great from my balance perspective. Looking for those blocks has been good from the kind of go straight out of the box kind of thing. It's gone really, it's been really consistent. We've had a little bit. We do, we put 10 barrels together at a time, so they're all quite small batches at the moment, and that's means that sometimes the smoky barrels, the peated barrels, give you, sometimes it's a bit ashy, sometimes it's a bit more vegetal, and there's a slight sort of variance there. But that, I think, we'll get as the batches kind of get more consistent over time, we'll get better at that.
Fantastic. Well, the one thing I want to ask is, everyone in the comments section, and you're watching at home, start putting into the comments your preferences of what your favorites were tonight, because as I said, we love seeing them, and it's great feedback as well, because everyone's taste is subjective. So if you're the big Pete head of the night, you have lots of opportunities here. If you're loving your sweetness, there's lots of opportunities. So put your 1, 2, 3s down below. But I do see Tina over in Germany asking, can the t-shirts be shipped to Europe? And I know she's asking this because, as an avid whiskey fan in Germany, there are many things that don't ship to her, which is unfortunate. But does your web store ship over to continental Europe?
It says it won't, but if Tina puts a message on it, says James says you can do this, then on the order, I'll get it over to her.
Okay.
I'll go down to the post office and I'll send it from me personally, so it doesn't have any other company stuff on it. So. Oh
well, that's company service right there. And I suppose if people are looking, as I said, for the bottles, of course, look into your email inbox, because at this point, I think we've just run over a little bit, which means the email, it's automatically set up, so it should be in your inbox right now for your 10%. And of course, don't forget the bundle. Irish malts are great for an old bundle. You're going to get an even greater discount if you buy all 3 together. But the legendary dark Silkie is at 46%. Fantastic blend from yourselves up in Sliabh Liag. If people want to find out more about your distillery and your products, what website would you be sending them to?
So if they want the recipes of the whiskies and things, go to silkiewhiskey.com. So the blend recipes are all on there and the cask usage for all of them, including the red Silkie. If you want to know about the distillery, the new distillery, and you want to see it being built, so SliabhLiagDistillers.com. And if you put /Ardra Distillery, you can actually see the distilleries lit up tonight. So the emergency lights are on at the moment. So you can see the stills glowing in the window, so that gives you more of a company kind of view.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated it. As I said, it's a whiskey I'm a very big fan of, and I'm delighted to have you here. And thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time.
Pleasure. No, absolute pleasure. I really loved it. So thank you very much.
Not at all, not at all. So to everyone who is at home, thank you so much for joining us. As always, my name is Matt Healy. I'm coming to you from potstill.com. But of course, the big stars of the show tonight are our three guests, Mr. Noel, Sweeney, Conor, Hyde, and of course, James Doherty. But most importantly as well, the two brothers from Cork, who are the powerhouses behind Irish Malt and 3 Drams, because none of this would be possible without them and their fantastic team. Make sure, if you're a subscriber, get into your email inbox, pick up your favorite bottles or pick up all 3, because again, this is the first time the bundles are going out. So thank you so much. And of course, as we're in the lead up to Christmas, make sure you check out the 3 Drams website. If you want to get a subscription, there is gifting options for those whiskey lovers in your life that you want to drop a subscription package to. So as always, thank you so much. And thank you for putting your favorite whiskeys of the evening into the comment section. Good luck. Good night.